we'll have Alex do his MCS first, and I'm very excited about it.
As always. So Nicolo is a violin maker in the 1600s. He is raised in a large family, and his dad is a little overbearing, and he eventually becomes his father's apprentice in the violin making business, which his grandfather started, who invented the instrument. He feels a lot of pressure, and eventually sort of makes good in doing the work that he's expected to do as the next generation. Then his entire family dies of the bubonic plague, and he's left pretty much alone. The shop is destroyed, everything gets stolen, and he needs to rebuild everything from scratch. His only living surviving relative is his half sister Betta, who he reconnects with, and they sort of slowly rebuild the shop together. He eventually, because he's not married and doesn't have any kids, goes outside the family to find apprentices, and then begins sort of acquiring apprentices from random other sort of families in the neighborhood whose kids aren't doing the jobs that they were supposed to be an apprentice for their own parents. And he also accumulates family members from his extended family who are cousins, and sort of rebuilds a family life that way at the same time as he's rebuilding his workshop, and develops a new sort of size of violin, what he calls the grand pattern, and that kind of takes off and becomes the standard for what we know today to be the violin. He eventually teaches Stradivari and Guarneri and a bunch of famous people who end up becoming the people that everybody still plays to this day. And at the end of his life, he does get married eventually and has kids, many of whom die. He has his own son as his primary apprentice at that point. And then he dies, sort of surrounded by family, but realizing that the world has moved on without him. And even though he's fulfilled the legacy that he wanted to fulfill in his life, there was probably more to it than that. And he's on some level happy to see the future generations take what he did and move forward.
Okay, it's getting easier for you too, and more fluid. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. I don't know. It's different every time. You focus on different parts, and
it is. But the essentials are all there, and maybe what's on your mind this week or whatever. Pam, will you do a retelling, please?
Okay. Well, that one's pretty easy.
Well, the first two. Sorry.
Okay. So in the first chapter, we meet Nicolo, who is dragging his father's body outside to hopefully one day be picked up by the undertakers during the midst of the plague, and his village or town is lined with dead people. The stench is overwhelming. Nicolo is not sure how he's going to continue his world without his father as his guide. He returns into the house. He's wandering a little bit aimlessly until he spots a violin in the window, picks it up, and uses it to convey his emotions of his loss by playing the music that has built his life so far and what he feels is stripping away from him. While he plays it, he is filled with the realization that this is a purpose for his life, and his mindset shifts from one of despair to perhaps potential. That, I'm not going to kill myself with that knife that's sitting in my wood shop. I have a reason to live. I'm supposed to do this. Then we move to chapter 2, which is a flashback with he and his father, who have a very strained relationship. Father is desperate to find that one of his sons will in fact be an apprentice and can understand the power of the wood to create the violin. He tests Nicolo by taking him into the woods and asking him if he can tell the difference between trees that would be good and trees that wouldn't. And Nicolo is impatient and he doesn't understand. And he angers his father. However, he really does want to please him. And at one point when his father asks him what he hears in the wood, he allows himself to hear nothing and focus on what he feels, and he gets it. He pleases his father, and it's real. It's not just to please his father. And his father commends him and realizes, you are the next me. And Nicolo thinks there's nothing better. And then we are going to see what happens.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you for that. So we already got a sense of what the stakes were. What do you think fits under that umbrella of legacy for this story as you have read the first couple of chapters? Just what do you glean?
I think because his desire for his father's approval is such a driving force, that there's two things. He wonders if he can be as good as his father, and yet there is a piece of Nicolo that resists his father's telling him there's limitations. So not only is he concerned about continuing the legacy that his father or his grandfather has started, I believe there's a piece of him that wonders if he can surpass it, because he recognizes there can be more to the violin than what my dad has taught me. It's just a little plant in that first chapter, but it's there.
So how do we define legacy? What does it mean? Does it mean copying something, being the same as, continuing something, or does it mean elevating something and and bringing it forward in a different way? So there are a lot of different questions under that umbrella of legacy.
Yeah,
a lot of different subplots and subthemes.
I think in that first chapter where we meet him being concerned that he won't have his father's guiding hand to allow him to continue the legacy, but he also says, I think it's when he meets Stradivari or Monteverdi, I think it's Monteverdi. I don't have it open in front of me.
Monteverdi, yeah.
I'm going to have it open, but I'm not looking at it. That he thinks one of them says there's more to the violin and his father disagrees, but he agrees with not his father, the other one. And that's going to be that little bone of contention, I think, that makes Nicolo surpass his father. I'm guessing.
Okay. Sounds good. It looks like that's what Alex is going for. We get a thumbs up. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And what were your thoughts about how successful these two chapters were?
Yeah, like I have anything negative. They're beautiful. One, since we were doing more line editing than developmental, since you've finished this, I have a few questions, and I think you answered it with your MCS, but since it's chapter 1, I don't know this yet. He mentions a meager meal on page 2, and then on page 3, he mentions his threadbare satin sleeves. And I'm wondering, why is he poor right now? And I'm going to guess that's going to come out because you mentioned that was broken into, it was stolen. They ruined his shop because right now it's just everybody's dying. He has plywood on the windows, but that's more to keep the disease out than it was to prevent burglars. So I wasn't sure why his financial state was poor at this point. And I noticed on page, I think it's on page 4, the second paragraph when he says, it was the best work he'd done, yet its sound had not yet reached the internal nights he knew were possible. So that's where I said, okay, if this is the case, why does he say he's going to be lost without his father's guidance back on page 3? Because here and in the paragraph afterwards, when he talks about Monteverde, he supports his own opinion that there's more to violin making than his father knew. So I don't know if it's not really so much a contradiction. It is, but I think that's part of his conflict. But I noticed it. Chapter 1 generally sets the story up perfectly. I think you showed Nicolo's despair and his almost abandonment of this craft. You provide some essential characteristics of him. He's a man desperate to please his father. He's seeking his own value as a violin maker, and yet a man with a single flame of resistance to prove his belief in the violin's capabilities, where his father doesn't have it. I think you balance the emotion well. It's strong, but not overwhelming. The chapter moves through his initial hopelessness to one of acceptance, and then finally the desire to live. I think you weave enough backstory in. It's not chunky, it's sprinkled. As Nicolo, he reminisces, he observes, he analyzes, and finally he acts. So I thought chapter 1 was a really nice chapter. Getting all those qualities in there that we look for in a first chapter. We see the direction of the story. I see the inciting incident. He's on his own. Now what's he going to do? You see the conflict building. You've got a beautiful world set up there, and you've provided some foundational aspects of that character to build on. Going right into a flashback for chapter 2 worked really well. And the only thing that I was a little questioned somewhat on page 6, you talked about he has a map, and the map ends where he and his father, continue to walk. And you said that it has someone drew a snake with a scrawled warning, "Here's the dragons." And I just wondered, is that supposed to be a cultural reference of the times? Does it play out more? Otherwise, I'm not sure. Is it to show his age? He's like 12 or 13. I'm not sure why it's there. Top
Do
of
we
page.
answer that real quick, Alex?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Do you want to answer that real quick?
Well, it's old maps back then where they reached the edge of it, and the map makers were either too afraid to go, or it just went off either into the ocean or into the mountains where it was too dangerous to keep surveying. They would just say, "Here be dragons," or "Here be monsters," or "Here be, the whatever the enemy was of the time,
So is that what the cultural belief was for that area during this time? The dragons lived there, or
more or less? Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it depended, but yeah.
Okay. So it's okay.
I'd be interested in hearing what everybody else thinks about that, because it's easy enough to cut without, I think.
Okay, so
I don't
Stacey,
know.
It felt totally natural for a 12-year-old boy to be wondering about if there are real dragons out there, because it's an unknown. It's undiscovered country.
Melanie, how about you?
I kind of like it. I'm going to start using that too.
Here be dragons.
There be dragons. I think we have some in my neighborhood, right on the edge.
But no, it doesn't come up again. So
Yeah.
it's a fair point. Yeah.
Here's a thought.
It
Before we-
shows his age. It shows his boyness.
But I don't think we need that to show his age. He is
So wait a
definitely
minute. Wait a minute,
house to his father.
guys. Here's a thought. In his life, he is on the edge of that map, and he explores territory that nobody else has. If you can bring that in some way, that would be beautiful as a start.
The dragons? Or the end of
In
the
other
map?
words, maps, there was a lot that wasn't explored. There's
Yeah.
a lot that hasn't
Right.
been discovered. In this story, he discovers something wonderful that changes the course of music in the West.
Right.
So if that could serve as something, it would be very interesting. If it's not ever introduced again, then maybe it's a distraction. But you could also explain, but I'm just saying it might be an opportunity, because it serves as a kind of beautiful metaphor. And things, so it's just a thought that occurred to me in my little fluid mind. Potential, maybe. But you could explain it away as well. As all the other maps that his father had, there was, no one knew. You couldn't do it in a way that a 12-year-old or 7-year-old, I can't remember how old it is here, I'm so sorry, how this young boy might have seen other maps with other things on it and how he rationalized them or how he has had them explained to him. It might be very interesting for a paragraph. So something to think about. You can go either way. Pam, please, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think you have the wrong reigns on the top of page 7. You have reign like a king reigns over his territory as opposed to the reins of the horse. So you probably want to fix that. Nothing else. I shouldn't say that. I do have on the top of page 10, when he asks the question that he's afraid to ask because he's already been swatted by his dad for answering the question wrong, his father says, good question. Good question at the bottom of 9. That is a good question. Should he react by showing some relief that he has pleased his father because it was so important to him in this chapter? I'm thinking, should he show some internal relief, if not pride, that he got
That's a very good note.
And that's bottom of 9, top of 10. And the only, I think, beautiful, you have the beautiful paragraph on page 11. I think there's a point where you say, thy, but it's in the middle of when you're saying you. Oh, there it is at the bottom of page 8. This is the secret. Listen to the wood. Listen not with your ears, but with thy soul. Why is he going back to Middle English here? Because it's the first he's done that. So I don't know. I understand it later because he's quoting something, and that makes sense. But there, I'm just not sure why he switches over to that. And
it goes right back to thee in the next sentence. And goes right back to thee in the next sentence. So it just seems.
I think the 2 chapters are really well placed. And I think that's an important thing at this point. You've got your whole story, and part of the value of making sure the chapters are in the right place, starting with the present. That's a powerful chapter that his father dies, is dragging him out. You've sucked the reader in. This chapter provides meaning for the first chapter, if that makes sense, as well as backstory that becomes the backbone for this whole book. The motivation behind his worries and his concerns, regarding both whether he has the skill, whether he can find apprentices who can carry on the tradition. Is he going to be compared to and surpass his father? I think these 2 are really great foundational chapters that make the reader want to dig in and read more.
Okay, good. Do you think that there was anything that could have been expanded on, or that you wanted to be expanded at all?
I just wanted to see young Nicolo feel some relief when he didn't get whacked over the head that second time, acknowledging that his father's approval resonated within him, because it's such a big part of everything that happens.
And that can be as simple as just a sigh and the shoulders slumping.
Right.
I mean, it's so easy.
Well, even just the tension coming out, and really that's the only thing where I felt maybe something needed there.
Good.
So,
Excellent.
it's beautiful. The language is gorgeous, as always.
Melany, what were your thoughts?
Beautiful, lovely, lovely, lovely. Great engagement with all the senses. Let's see, on page 3, so Nicolo's 33 here, and he says, without his father's guidance, this seemed impossible. So he was questioning, his ability to carry on without his dad. So I don't know this, but I'm thinking by the age of 33, it would seem like he would have fully acquired his skills. But I don't know if that's typical or not. And so maybe clarify that or provide some benchmark. he just seems kind of old to think that he would need his dad, not knowing much about his craft.
That's a really good point.
The paragraph after this is so tiny, but we're doing line edits, right? So I get to say it. All he could think to do was play to unleash the sound of his family legacy. I think unleash is too active of a verb. In the next paragraph, you say a soothing sonata, which I think is perfect. So I think unleash is too like angry of a verb or something. That's so minor. All right, this comment's maybe going to make me sound like a dork, but I cannot stand the word sound holes.
I know, I can't either.
I mean, I know that's what it's called, but I just really don't want you to say it because it makes me either think of Beavis and Butthead or like a Renaissance insult. And it's just
The only other option is F holes.
Can you do it in Italian? Wait, can you just do it in Italian?
Unfortunately, there's two ways to say it: F hole and sound hole.
oh
And,
man.
Yeah, I know, and that's why I went with sound hole, because F hole is way worse. Like,
Oh, I feel like they're both
What is it?
awful.
What does it say about me that I feel like
You
I've
could
got both,
unleash an F hole.
You got what, Stacey?
that I've got both F holes and sound holes?
Oh my gosh. I mean, maybe you just,
It really catches me every time.
yeah, I mean, that word just jumps off the page in the worst possible way. I mean, maybe I was wondering if you could just delete that part of the sentence where it comes up. I mean, I don't know. That's just me. That's a horrible word. The sentence, and this has sound holes in it. The violin gazed up at him. It's sound holes watching him, blah, blah, blah. I know what you're getting at with that sentence. But I think there's probably a better way to express it. And I'm not saying that just because it has sound holes in it, but
I did not know what you were trying to get at with that sentence.
You didn't know what you were getting.
No, I did not get the dog reference at all.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're trying to say. There might just be a better way to say it.
Maybe he is Alex frozen? No, he's just thinking. Sound holes.
Not any more than usual.
Maybe you could drill down on it. I always believe there's an opportunity in that. Go, God, he hated the sound of that. It sounded so bad. So he called them the little eyes, you know. It's a thought.
Yeah, who knows? Here be dragons.
L'occhio picchino.
Okay, so right after that, when he says for years his father had prevented him from making his own instruments, first saying he was too young, then that he had more to learn. So that gives me pause, especially after reading chapter 2, when we know like the most important thing to his dad is that his last son, please be good at this. And so I would think if anything, he would like overteach him, be overbearing about teach. So I just wonder about that.
I'm going to interject a thought here before it disappears. We're talking about that father-son dynamic, and at the very end of the story, we know that Nicolo struggles with the fact that he's been surpassed. Maybe the father has a similar dynamic about not wanting to be surpassed by a son. Might be something to introduce, just a thought. It is strange. It feels strange to us as modern people that he's in his 30s and he's got a failure to launch in his father's violin making, business. So why? And can we address that at all? Something to think about. It does come across. Anyway, continue, Melanie.
Yeah, and that kind of feeds into my next comment, which is when he said he thought a more powerful sound was possible. That feels like a very mature, I'm very good at my craft observation, which feels like it's kind of opposed to his comment of, I don't know if I can do this without my dad. So I guess I'm not sure what his skill level is. Is he skilled and he's just lacking self-confidence, or yeah, food for thought.
Okay, thank you.
And then in chapter 2, I think there was just one, well, I really love the bookend moment of mentioning the secret of the Amati sound, since we know that comes up at the end also. Where was it? Oh, when Nicolo does feel the sound, hear the sound, he gets it. And his dad's reaction was, I knew it. I knew not all my sons were idiots, basically. I really want his dad to say something positive, because I know it's important to him. And as a reader, like, I want to be happy and joyful in that moment that he gets it. And that kind of deflates it for me. And probably deflates it a little bit for Nicolo too, I would imagine. It just seems like that would be a moment of pure joy, full stop.
Something to think about, definitely.
I'd be interested. That's an interesting moment, because it actually is kind of, it matters long term. Did Pam and Stacey, Celeste, do you agree? And I won't say why until after, maybe, but
what do you think, Stacey?
Agree with what?
That moment that Melanie just pointed out, where there isn't a show of the father's joy, recognition of his son's ability, and there was not that shared moment.
I guess I felt like there was, because he
Okay.
does, or I may not be in the right spot.
So this is the bottom of, it's the last paragraph of page 11.
Mm-hmm.
He just says, I knew it. I knew not all my sons were useless imbeciles.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that was appropriate for that day and age.
Yeah, I got that. I got that vibe too, must say.
Yeah. I mean, today we would throw a party and invite all the neighbors over. But back then, I think that was just, that felt very, it didn't jump out to me. It felt right.
And he follows it up by gently placing his palm on his chest. And to me, that was about as affectionate as he could be with his son.
Yeah. That feels like something that the father gives to the son in that.
Yeah, it felt copacetic for their relationship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because no, this is. I mean, I know it's a silly one-line thing, but it's definitely something where, for me, the dad is incapable of being able to say, yes, you're perfect, right? Like, he just is not. It's not in his nature to be able to give a compliment, and so the closest he can get is to say, you're not an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, and for Nicolo, that's good enough, because he knows.
I think it was the character for the father. It felt like
but today it's like, man, that's harsh. Yeah, okay. But I want it to be a little bit of a letdown. Like, it couldn't have been more. But if it's too much, it's too much. Like, so that's, I don't know. That's why it was worth just double checking. But thank you.
Great. And I wanted to thank you, Melanie, for that. And any final thoughts on that? How about you, Stacey, closing out our comments for Alex?
Alex, where are we in chapter 3? Do we stay with Nicolo being 12 years old? Okay. So jumping out with Melany to 30,000 feet, I would encourage you to consider making chapter 1 a prologue and chapter 2 chapter 1. And I don't have any reasons for that except it was a short little chapter, and then we jump back in time and have a big long chapter. It felt, and this is an overstatement, but it felt like a weak beginning structurally. And so, and I was thinking about it, for some reason it would feel interesting to have that as maybe as a prologue, and chapter 2 as, okay, we're starting now. Don't have to, but just something to think about, because that first chapter is 5 pages, and he drags his dead father out. It's a cool opening. Your first sentence is killer. I love that. So just something to think about. Also, structurally, you've got both chapters where Nicola is at 33 or whatever, and then at 12, and I'm not saying this is wrong or bad, but they both end up on a high note. They both structurally end up positive. Nicola knows what he's designed to do in the beginning, and then at the end of chapter 2, he's got his father's attention, which I find that interesting as well. It's not like you're setting up something dire that we're fixing for the rest of the book necessarily, but it's on a positive note, which I think is cool. Do we see, I'm going big picture still before I jump down, but do we see Nicola's keen sense of hearing later on in the book? Because I don't remember getting that in the sections that we read, that Pam and I read, and maybe I just didn't notice it or something. But if we do, great. But it just kind of jumped out at me. I was like, gosh, I don't remember that. So jumping down closer, help me with the timeline on page 1 and 2, because at the top of page 2, and let me see if I can say this in a way that makes sense. The first paragraph, on the ground lay the broken boards he pried off the windows and doors just last week. So I'm assuming his father has been sick for a little while. Correct?
About a couple weeks.
Okay, but then in the paragraph before that on page 1, it says days earlier they had promised to work together forever. And so it just kind of threw me off with the timeline there, unless that was a rhetorical, hey, well, you're going to get better. This is going to work out. We're going to work together forever kind of thing. So that timeline piece threw me out a little bit.
Yeah, how long, it would be good to identify how long the household had been sick. As soon as the first person had the plague, then whoever was in charge of the village or the town would have come and boarded the house up. That was what the procedure was. And then how long after that did he rip them off? Was it, right before his father had died? So give us a little idea of the timeline.
Yep. On page 3, I love the first full paragraph. It was at once a voice to express the divine harmony of the spheres in a little box made of wood. I love that. I love that sentence. That was very cool. And then the next sentence I was confused with. You say all of his grandfather's inventions, the violin was his favorite. as when I first read that, I referred to his as grandfather. And so I was trucking along fine until I hit the sentence, but without his father's guidance, this now seemed impossible. And I was like, whoa, what did I miss?
The violin was Nicolo's favorite.
Yes.
You do that a little bit in the first few chapters. I've identified that. I mentioned earlier, I think.
There was in the next paragraph, everyone had gathered around and showered his performance with praise. I wasn't sure who that was. It's clear in the next sentence, but like the Duke, but I feel like it should be clear there, because otherwise I'm throwing off a little bit. Middle of page 4, the paragraph that starts for years, his father. This sentence feels awkward to me with all the thens and that's, then that, and that. It was just, yeah. And again, right after that, a half dozen violins now carried his label. I just wasn't sure who the him and his were there. At the bottom of page 7, when Nicolo answers the question that his father asks, and then his father hits him, I wasn't completely clear on why he was hitting him. Was it because it was the wrong answer, or was it because it was the right answer and dad felt like son was showing off and being cocky? I think it was that, but I wasn't sure which way I was supposed to go with that, because I wasn't sure what dad was saying. He just said, "Did you come here to learn or show off?" Well, yeah, and maybe that's good. You're muted, by the way. And maybe that's fine, but then let's see Nicolo. If Nicolo is confused, let's see his confusion. What did I do wrong? Does he know? Does he know why he got hit? I don't know.
So that might be something to just mention, is that the sin of pride that we talk about sometimes, Alex? I don't know.
And Melany mentioned the secret, and I hit on that too on the bottom of page 8, the secret, because you refer to that at the very end of the book. My only question was with that was how this does connect to the end of the book that says the secret is that there is no secret, and should there be a tighter connection with it somehow? Because it felt more substantive here, and so I just wonder if there was something more you could do with it there. But those were the big things that jumped out at me. But I thought it was a great setup, whether you keep it as 2 chapters or whatever. I think it has very strong vision in these chapters, very strong direction, and very beautiful use of language. So it was a pleasure reading it.
Awesome, thank you. I wanted to chime in a little bit. I think the concern about it being a short first chapter, feeling almost like a prologue, I just want to see it a little bit longer and more fleshed out. And I made some notes regarding that. There are a few areas where it could be done very, very easily. For example, you say on the first page, days earlier, they had promised to work together forever. I want to know about that conversation. How did that even come up? Was it because everybody was sick and dying in the house? Was it just something random? That is a whole opportunity missed, I feel, that could be fleshed out for even a page. Something to think about developing, that would be very, very interesting and give us a better sense of him, and perhaps answer some of these questions if we have about him being 32 or 33 and still having not launched his career in a certain respect. So think about that. There was another area where you said, let's see. Okay. Oh, it was actually about the boards that he had pried off the windows last week. And I think it should be the week before, not last week, because it's problematic using the word last when you're writing in past tense already. But I think the whole process of boarding the house up is something a lot of us know about, but nevertheless, it's really interesting. And I think it would be interesting to include how suffocating that might have made him feel, or dark, or fatalistic. Obviously, he felt fatalistic. Everybody died in his house. But I think going into that a little bit, and then going into how he had ripped them off, and maybe it was a few days ago, or maybe it was that morning he finally had decided to rip them off. I don't know. Again, what Stacey had mentioned about the timing is a little bit, needs a little clarification, because it's confusing. But I think that whole process, again, here is another use for wood. What a horrible use for wood. His use of wood is this spectacular, magical instrument, but it's being used to literally shut a family in and kill them off, and kill off this woodworking family. So you have an opportunity that you can expand on here that could be quite beautiful and really inform us at the beginning. I think, let's see if there was anything else I really wanted you to expand on. Let's see. No, the rest of them were line edits. I mean, I am worried, and I think that perhaps these two areas where you could expand give you the opportunity to explain the dynamic a little bit more between his father and himself before you get into the flashback. Not make it feel like a prologue, but as the real, genuine start of this book. And I think that does feel that way already, but I think you have opportunity to flesh it out even a little bit more. I think this could be 2 pages longer, quite frankly. Now, on page 8, you say, Nicolo swallowed, his lips stiff with cold. Grandpa Andrea came into this forest after Mama's cousin Catherine de' Medici ordered 36 violins for the French King Charles IX. This is not something that he would naturally say, but he might recite it as, you might use the term, then recited, and then go into the dialogue to show that this is something he had been literally trained to repeat. This was family lore that was a recitation. Recitation? Okay, so a simple, you could explain it in that fashion. Let's see, I also caught the thy thing that Melany had mentioned. Why use one and then the other? Consistency, unless he's quoting something. Let's see. The part on page 9 where he struck Girolamo struck the tree and the tone rang out. And I thought that was a lovely description. The ancients taught that sound exists whether we are here or not. He closed his eyes, allow the sound to move the air, to come to you without naming it, allow it to pass through you. It's so simply said, but such a complex thought. And sometimes when we have these really complex details, the simpler we can write, the better. And you did that, and I really appreciate that. Let's see, also on page 10, the paragraph where you're describing his sense of sound was beautiful. And the next page where you describe how he finally feels what his father wants him to feel, I thought you did a really good job with. There was one thing on the last page which sounded very modern to me, even though I don't think it was meant to be. So Girolamo is about to chop the tree down, and he says to his son, give me some space. So that sounds like my kids, Mom, give me some space. It sounds very modern to me. It rings modern in my ears. Another way to say it might be make way or something like that. It just sounds modern, even though I think it may have had been a proper usage in the day. It rings modern to me. I don't know if anybody felt that when they saw it. Again, these are very minor things, but now we're getting down to that micro level, that sort of where these things do make a little bit of a difference. Overall, I think expanding the first chapter, just deepening it a little bit would be great, would serve the second chapter and then not make it feel prologue-ish, and would even give us more investment in Nicolo in the first chapter. We want to know why he has been, had this, again, I'm using the modern term, failure to launch. Why has his father held him down? What is this struggle? What is this essential struggle that has, we think, something to do with legacy and possibly a fear of his son surpassing him or having no legacy whatsoever? Could be one or the other with his father. Why? What was he of this age and not fully, engaged in this process? He'd only been made 6 violins at this point, at that age, with an average lifespan of 36 years. So, something, or actually less during that period of time. So something to think about, but I think it's really heading in the right direction. How are you feeling going through the second draft?
Good. I enjoy writing first drafts more. I've realized I really
You're
enjoy
weird.
I like the first draft feeling. And then, I love revising, but there's definitely a moment where I'm kind of like, yeah, okay. And yet I keep working on it, right?
Gotta keep working on it, although at some point you gotta finish. Speaking of finishing, I realize how late we've run, and my apologies. I know everyone has things to do, and Pam, Melany, I forget where you're both on East Coast time, and Stacey's Mountain time, and Alex and I are in LA or in California. I'm sorry, West Coast. I screwed that up 3 times. So we're all in different time zones. This ran very long tonight. My apologies for that. But I think that we got a lot accomplished. And I think you're all doing a really good job. Any final remarks, comments, concerns? Stacey, anything? Okay. Well, go have dinner or a glass of wine or whatever you like. And I will see you all in 2 weeks. That is, well, let's see. Let me just open this up real quickly. I'd like to hear from everybody in the meantime. I really want to talk with you one-on-ones, and I'll see you on the 28th. And great job tonight. And next time I'll remember to use the timer. All right.
Bardsy delivers the tools, guidance, and support you need to produce compelling novels. Our well-researched and thoroughly tested approach includes our minimum complete story, a 90-second exercise that keeps your writing on track while fueling creativity, Bardsy Publishability Index, a 23-dimension checklist that offers attainable goals and provides actionable feedback, and our brand new comprehensive character developer that helps you construct unforgettable characters. Come see for yourself at Bardsy.com today. Try our workshop or enter our first chapter contest. Then, when you're ready, Elite Membership delivers writing groups, personal coaching, and a curated community. With Bardsy, your work will captivate everyone, from agents to publishers, and, most importantly, your readers.